How are you, ladies and gentlemen? It is Wednesday, and as always, every Wednesday on this channel, we discuss and react to your Bulls hot takes. So if you're new to the channel, welcome to the channel, by the way. But if you are new, if you have any Bulls hot takes or opinions, feel free to leave them in the comments below, and I just might include them in next week's video. And guys, there were a lot of good takes this week, and I know I basically say that every week, but given the amount of takes that I received, I likely will do a second video either later today or tomorrow. With it being the offseason for the Bulls, there obviously hasn't been as much going on in terms of Bulls news and information as we would otherwise see, so why not have two hot takes videos, right? Anyway, keep the takes coming. Like I mentioned previously, I will continue this series of Bulls hot takes every week, even through the offseason. So what's going on, everyone? You are listening to Bulls Central here. Hope you're all doing well. Guys, before I get into the video, I did have a few people reach out to me regarding the coin flip tiebreaker for the Bulls draft picks in both the first and second round, which they won against the Kings and Pelicans. So the Bulls, Kings, Pelicans all finished the season with the same record, which meant a tiebreaker needed to happen in order to determine the draft order for both the first and second round draft picks. Now, the Bulls won the tiebreaker, meaning they will most likely fall to number 8 in the draft lottery drawing, with the Kings at 9 and the Pelicans at 10. And some of you have been asking me, well, this is good, right? We would prefer to fall number 8 than either number 9 or 10 because it improves our odds to fall into the top 4. Well, no, that is actually not the case. In fact, this is actually has no bearing on improving our odds in landing the top 4. The Bulls still have the same odds as they did before, as do the Kings and the Pelicans. The only difference being is that in the second round, the Bulls will now get the 8th pick in the second round, so the number 38th pick overall instead of the 40th pick overall. Really, the tiebreaker only serves to benefit the Orlando Magic, as this now means if none of the Bulls, Kings, or Pelicans move up into the top 4, the Magic would now get the number 8 pick instead of the number 9 or 10 pick. That's it. The Bulls' odds did not improve at all in getting to the top 4 based on this tiebreaker coin flip. They still have just a 20% chance of landing in the top 4 as they did previously, and they have a 4.5% chance at landing the number 1 pick. Anyway, I just wanted to clarify that, as I know some people had been asking about it, whether it was in the Discord or on the channel. But let's get into our hot take, shall we? So our first take comes to us from Chester Hardy. Troy Brown should start at small forward and move Patrick Williams to power forward next season. This would improve their defense and provide excellent spacing. So I am all for this idea. I've said before, Patrick Williams, I think is much better suited as a power forward. And when Markkanen was injured towards the beginning of the season and we got to see P. Will play the 4, he did an incredible job at playing, more down low. Now, defensively, I do think he's better at guarding opposing team small forwards, just because he's a great wing defender, and generally speaking, he has a size advantage over other small forwards, but not necessarily the case with other power forwards. And I really like Troy Brown Jr. It was unfortunate that he missed so much time to finish off the season, because when he did play, he was very effective on the defensive end, something the Bulls greatly needed. And I actually wished that Billy Donovan would have played him more. There were numerous games where I felt Troy Brown wasn't getting enough minutes, especially with the defense that he was playing, or when the defense started to fall apart. That was when we really needed him to insert himself into the lineup and be that scrappy defender that we need. So yes, I am all for trying the starting lineup, as I do think it makes the starting group much stronger defensively and more dynamic on offense. I don't know necessarily if I would, say that it provides excellent floor spacing like you mentioned. I think the floor spacing would be decent, but until Patrick Williams starts knocking down that outside shot more consistently on more attempts, this shift won't really make the Bulls floor spacing excellent by any means. Next, we've got Real JOF. Zach is an all-time Bull, or at the very least, he will be soon. Now, I had a hot take probably a couple months ago that was similar to this, but a little different in that the take was saying that Lavine, when his career is all said and done, he will be an all-time great Chicago Bull. And in this one, you're saying that Zach is already there, or at least will be there very soon. Now, I'll add, it's not all that hard to be a Bulls all-time great, considering they had so many down years between the MJ era and the D Rose era, and before that you had guys like Artis Gilmore, Jerry Sloan, Bob Love that fit into that all-time great category. But outside of that, there isn't really a ton. I mean, that's why you only see 4 jerseys retired in the rafters, which I do think more will be added. I actually made a video on that back around the time when I started the channel. I do think Rose and Noah will eventually be added to that in the future. But in any event, the all-time great list for the Bulls isn't that hard, at least in my opinion anyway. And there are a couple reasons for that. I mean, to be an all-time great, you really have to play for the Bulls more than 2 seasons. Like, the Bulls have Pau Gasol, who was actually an all-star when he was on the Bulls, but I don't consider him to be an all-time great because he wasn't with the team for all that long, and he didn't play his best years with the Bulls. And as we know from this front office, guys don't really stay around in Chicago all that long. When players do start getting good, they generally tend to trade them. But be that as it may, so for Zach already being considered an all-time great Chicago Bull, well, I think that's still too early to claim, and I'll explain why. First and foremost, Lavine, although he became an all-star with the Bulls, which is great and is a plus for him in terms of cementing his all-time great status with the franchise, as there really haven't been too many Chicago Bull all-stars in franchise history, so that alone is a big accomplishment for him. However, Lavine has yet to make the postseason with the Bulls, and until he gets there, even just to get to the first round, you really cannot consider him to be an all-time great Chicago Bull. When you compare him to guys like Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen, Dennis Rodman, Horace Grant, Derrick Rose, Joakim Noah, Luol Deng, Jimmy Butler, and so on, I mean, these are all guys that actually had relative success in the postseason. Obviously, Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen, Dennis Rodman, they were NBA champions, but even the later years, the Derrick Rose years, I mean, those guys at least made deep runs into the postseason. And Zach Lavine has yet to even play one single game in the playoffs. The other thing we don't know to the extent is Lavine's full career with the Bulls yet. Like, if Lavine was traded this summer, which I highly doubt that he would, and I wouldn't want that to happen, but if he did and he never played another game for the Bulls again, would 4 seasons, 1 All-Star appearance, averaging 24.5 points per game over 205 games that he played with the franchise, would that be enough to consider him an all-time great? And of course, this all depends on whether Lavine stays with the Bulls if he doesn't stay beyond his current contract that is set to expire next season. So I know that was kind of a long-winded answer. In short, already an all-time great Chicago Bull, no. And really because we need to see some postseason success from Zach before we give him that title. However, if it's very soon, like you mentioned, well, if Lavine can finally get the Bulls over the hump and into the playoffs next season and leading the way, and he has an even better season than he did this year, and maybe they even make a little bit of a run in the playoffs, then yes, I think it's fair to say that he could be an all-time Bull very soon. Next, and this one is from the Discord, which, by the way, if you're interested in joining the Bull Central Discord, is entirely free to join. I do not charge any membership fees, and it's a great place to talk Bulls basketball when we're not doing it in here. So the link to the Discord is in the description below. But this one comes to us from Radar. The Bulls will never be a true title contender if Reinsdorf continues refusing to get us into the luxury tax. It's funny that you mentioned this one because I actually wanted to make a dedicated video on the Bulls ownership and why they have been the real problem for the Bulls struggles all these years. And now that it's the off season, I likely will put something together for that. But as for your take, yes, it's no secret that the Reinsdorfs, although, completely loaded in their own right, are incredibly cheap and will always take the mediocre route if it means saving money on the payroll and the luxury tax. Because at the end of the day, the Bulls are one of the biggest franchises in the league in terms of their revenue and value, as well as their overall attendance. Even when the team is doing poorly, this team still makes a lot of money. So there isn't much incentive for the Reinsdorfs to go into the luxury tax because they're still going to make a lot of money either way. That being said, it's not like the Reinsdorfs have never allowed for the front office to go into the luxury tax. They have in past seasons from time to time when it, has served them well. But yes, they are cheap, and they have always been, because they are also the owner of the White Sox, and I feel their focus is on baseball, as they are bigger baseball fans and haven't really cared as much about basketball. That's just my personal opinion. I also, just get the sense that they don't understand the game of basketball all that well compared to, say, baseball, which is why they always made poor decisions in hiring executives. So for your take, yeah, you're probably right. The Bulls will likely not be true title contenders until the Reinsdorfs start coughing up some money and give the new front office full autonomy to actually build a contending team no matter the cost. Like, in the grand scheme of things, in terms of how much money the Bulls make and their value and the net worth of the Reinsdorf family, what does spending a few additional $1 million into the luxury tax really going to matter to them? Just do it. Stop being cheapskates. Next, we've got Deluxe. Jeremy Lin is the point guard the Bulls need. No. And it's weird. I've actually seen so many people say that the Bulls need to go after Jeremy Lin as their point guard. Why? And that's no disrespect to Lin. I mean, he had some nice seasons in the NBA as a solid point guard in the league. Not a star, but he was a decent player. But I mean, guys, there's a reason Jeremy Lin doesn't play in the NBA anymore, and hasn't since the 2018-19 season. First of all, he's 32, which I know isn't old, but it's not young when you compare it to some of the other options that the Bulls could pursue this offseason. On top of that, he's had some big injuries, so a lot of major injuries. He's 32. That doesn't bode well for him coming back into the NBA. He's played in the NBA, hasn't played in the NBA, I guess I should say, in the last 2 seasons. The last time that he did play, he averaged 9.6 points per game, 2.4 rebounds, and 3.1 assists on very poor shooting from 3 at 29%. And this was in 74 games in his last season in the league. I get that he's been working hard and he's playing overseas and in the G League since leaving the NBA, but come on now. He's not the answer the Bulls need for their point guard. Like, Jeremy Lin is not better than Coby White, and probably wasn't even better than Coby at the height of Lin's sanity. On top of that, it's not like Jeremy Lin is a crazy good playmaker and defender, which is what the Bulls need in a point guard right now. In fact, his defense is actually pretty terrible, and his court vision has actually gone down dramatically. I don't know. I don't see how this would benefit the Bulls at all. Not with all the other options that they have out there. And a lot of people have been throwing this idea around getting Jeremy Lin, and I can't comprehend it. Let's do one more for now. This one is from Reina Oma. Vooch is going to be Boozer version 2. Oh man, I sincerely hope not. That would be a nightmare for the Bulls, and I know that sounds harsh because Boozer was actually a decent player for the Bulls in those initial D Rose years. A poor defender but a solid rebounder, and was a great second or third option on offense behind Rose. And what I did like about Boozer was the energy he brought to the court, and how he got the team hyped, maybe sometimes a little too much. We'll never forget the time that he punched the ref below the belt and screaming and won. But despite his flaws, and of course being a big disappointment in the Bulls being their consolation prize in the 2010 free agency, and never really living up to that max contract that they gave him, right? I did still appreciate that about Boozer in the sense that he always gave it his all when he was on the court. But as for your take, no, I mean, first of all, Vucevic and Boozer are very different players, which I know you're not saying that they're the same, more so that Vucevic will end up being a mistake like Boozer. But no, I really don't think so, because Vooch offers such a unique skill set, and despite his mediocre defense, he has been so inconsistent on offense throughout his career and has really evolved his game with the modern day NBA. I mean, when he entered into the league back in 2011, he rarely took any threes because it just wasn't needed at the time from big men. And he has completely shifted his repertoire to also be an outside shooting big man that can give a team spacing. And even with him providing spacing on the floor, he's still able to be a beast on the boards and great at grabbing offensive rebounds, which is something the Bulls greatly needed. So I don't think Vucevic is going to be an answer to all the Bulls' problems. He's not going to turn into a superstar, but he will be considerably better for the Bulls than Carlos Boozer ever was. So I'll wrap it up there for now, guys. Keep the hot takes coming. Like I mentioned, I'll likely put out another video with more takes that I was not able to cover. As always, guys, be sure to subscribe if you're a Bulls fan, as I do post daily Bulls content. Thanks again for tuning in, and I will catch you guys in the next one.